and comment. Tell us, from which country or city are you watching today? We enjoy connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Foundations of Sand. Nathaniel Russo had always been a calculated man. At 42, he'd built his life on precision and control, traits that had served him well in his career as a high-profile architectural engineer, designing structures that could withstand earthquakes and hurricanes. His personal strength mirrored his professional reputation: unbreakable, resilient, formidable. His office walls were adorned with awards and photographs of his most impressive projects. One particular photo stood out: Nathaniel standing next to a massive skyscraper in Seattle, his arm around his wife, Vanessa, and their daughter, Lily, beaming between them. That picture had been taken 5 years ago. They looked happy then. Perhaps they were. Nathaniel's colleagues at Meridian Engineering knew better than to cross him. He was fair but exacting, generous to those who demonstrated loyalty, and ruthlessly efficient at removing obstacles or people who stood in his way. His team respected him, but few claimed to truly know him. Behind his calculating green eyes lay a history few were privy to. Growing up in poverty with an alcoholic father and absent mother, Nathaniel had learned early that trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. His rise from foster care to scholarship student to respected professional had been forged through sheer determination. He hadn't merely climbed the socioeconomic ladder. He'd built it himself, wrong by punishing wrong. At home, Nathaniel believed he'd created something different, a sanctuary of trust. His wife, Vanessa, with her warm laugh and artistic temperament, had seemed his perfect counterbalance. They met at a charity gala 12 years ago when she'd been working as an event coordinator. Her easy charm had drawn him in, her apparent sincerity cracking the armor he'd spent decades forging. Their daughter, Lily, now 11, had her mother's honey blonde hair but Nathaniel's analytical mind. She excelled in mathematics and science, making her father secretly proud, though he rarely showed it. Nathaniel wasn't demonstrative with his affection, but his provision was unwavering. The sprawling lakeside home, Lily's private school tuition, Vanessa's art studio, all testaments to his commitment. Beneath this carefully constructed facade, however, hairline fractures had been forming. The first indication came 6 months ago when Vanessa enrolled in a local community college art program. "I need something for myself," she'd explained. Nathaniel had nodded, distracted by an upcoming project deadline. He'd missed the significance of her words, the subtle shift in her demeanor. More signs followed. Weekend workshops extended into evening commitments. New friends whose names Nathaniel didn't recognize. Phone calls that ended abruptly when he entered a room. Each incident on its own seemed inconsequential, but together they formed a pattern that his analytical mind couldn't ignore. Then came Theo Reeves, an art instructor at the community college. He'd appeared at their home one evening to drop off supplies Vanessa had forgotten after class. Tall, with tousled brown hair and affected casualness, he'd extended his hand to Nathaniel with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Your wife has remarkable talent," Theo had said, standing too close to Vanessa in their foyer. "She brings something special to the class." Nathaniel had nodded politely while cataloging the man's body language. The way Vanessa's cheeks flushed, the unnecessary duration of eye contact between them. That night, lying beside his wife in bed, he felt the distance between them wider than the inches separating their bodies. The following morning, Nathaniel had called Preston Decker, an old college roommate who now ran a private security firm. The surveillance had begun discreetly. Phone records, credit card statements, traffic camera footage. Nathaniel wasn't one to act on suspicion alone. He required evidence, data, confirmation. By Thanksgiving, the file on his desk had grown thick with photographs, timestamps, and transcripts. Vanessa's art classes had become the backdrop for an affair that had been going on for 4 months. The motel receipts, the intimate texts, the jewelry purchases on a credit card Nathaniel didn't know existed. Each piece of evidence was a body blow. Yet he showed nothing. At Thanksgiving dinner with Vanessa's parents and their neighbors, he'd been the perfect host, carving the turkey with steady hands while his mind calculated angles of attack and defense. Lily had watched him curiously that night, as though sensing the storm brewing behind his composed expression. It was the week after Thanksgiving when Nathaniel discovered Vanessa had been siphoning money from their joint accounts. Small amounts at first, then larger sums, nearly $50,000 over the past 3 months. Not for art supplies or classes, but for a separate apartment lease signed by both Vanessa and Theo Reeves. They were planning to leave, Vanessa, and more devastatingly, Lily. That night, sitting alone in his home office with the evidence spread before him, Nathaniel made a decision. He wouldn't confront them yet. Confrontation without a comprehensive strategy was for amateurs, for men ruled by emotion rather than intellect. No, he would wait, observe, and prepare. This betrayal would be answered not with desperate pleas or threats, but with the same methodical precision he applied to engineering skyscrapers that could weather any storm. By December, Nathaniel had a plan, a blueprint for retribution as meticulously designed as any building he'd ever created. As Christmas approached, he continued to play the role of oblivious husband and father, all while setting in motion the mechanisms that would deliver a very specific kind of justice. He just needed to wait for them to make their move first. Chapter 2. The Gathering Storm. The December air hung heavy with unspoken tensions as Nathaniel navigated the pre-Christmas routine with mechanical precision. Each morning he rose at 5:30, made coffee for 2, and pretended not to notice when Vanessa's cup remained untouched. Their conversations had become transactional, clinical exchanges about household logistics and Lily's school schedule. Lily, perceptive beyond her 11 years, had grown quiet. Her usual enthusiastic retellings of school events had been replaced by watchful silences. One afternoon, Nathaniel found her sitting alone in the backyard, bundled against the cold, staring at the frozen lake behind their property. "Everything okay, kiddo?" he asked, lowering himself onto the bench beside her. She didn't look at him. "Are you and Mom getting a divorce?" The directness of the question caught him off guard. Nathaniel considered lying, offering the palliative reassurances parents typically provided, but something in Lily's posture, shoulders squared, jaw set firmly, reminded him so much of himself that he couldn't bring himself to deceive her. "I don't know yet," he answered honestly, "but whatever happens between your mother and me has nothing to do with how much we both love you." Lily turned to him, then, her green eyes, his eyes, sharp with understanding. "She's with someone else, isn't she? That art teacher." Nathaniel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the December air. "What makes you say that?" "I'm not stupid, Dad. She smells different when she comes home from her classes, and I saw texts on her phone." Lily's voice remained steady, but her fingers twisted anxiously in her lap. "She said I could go live with them after Christmas, that we'd start a new life. But I don't want a new life." Nathaniel's mind raced, recalculating. He hadn't anticipated that Lily had been brought into Vanessa's plans, or that his daughter would confide in him. This changed things, both simplified and complicated his approach. "Has she introduced you to him?" Nathaniel kept his voice neutral, though rage burned like acid in his chest. Lily nodded. "He took us out for ice cream last month. Mom said you were working late, but you were at that conference in Denver." She looked up at him, something hardening in her young face. "I didn't like him. He talked to me like I was a baby, and he kept touching Mom's hand when he thought I wasn't looking." Nathaniel placed a careful arm around his daughter's shoulders. "I want you to promise me something. If you ever feel unsafe or uncomfortable, you call me immediately. Doesn't matter where I am or what time it is. Understand?" Lily leaned into him slightly, the first genuine connection they'd shared in weeks. "Understand." Later that night, Nathaniel reviewed the security footage Preston had installed throughout their home. He watched as Vanessa slipped into Lily's room, sat on the edge of her bed, and spoke in hushed tones. Though there was no audio, he could read the animation in Vanessa's gestures, the growing discomfort in Lily's posture, the eventual nod that looked more like surrender than agreement. The next day, Nathaniel adjusted his strategy. He called Preston again. "I need eyes on Lily at all times," he instructed. "And I want everything you can get on Theodore Reeves. Not just the affair. I want financial records, educational background, previous relationships, criminal history, if any. Everything. Preston's voice remained professional. Already done most of that. There's something you should know about Reeves. He's not just an art teacher. Before moving here, he had some connections to a high-end art forgery ring in Chicago. Nothing proven, charges dropped, but there were 3 separate investigations. Interesting. Nathaniel's mind began formulating new possibilities. And my wife? What's her involvement? Nothing concrete yet, but there have been unusual transactions from an account in her name to an offshore entity that's appeared in our forgery investigation records before. The pieces shifted in Nathaniel's mental chessboard. He'd assumed the affair was the primary betrayal, but perhaps it was merely the surface layer of something deeper. The money Vanessa had been moving, it wasn't just for a new apartment. It was investment capital. One more thing, Preston added. Reeves has a history with volatile relationships. 2 restraining orders from ex-girlfriends in the past 5 years. Allegations of emotional and physical abuse, though nothing stuck. He's charming until he's not. Nathaniel's grip tightened on the phone. Keep digging. And Preston? Make sure the security detail on Lily is invisible but constant. I don't want Vanessa or Reeves to know they're being watched. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparations. Nathaniel adjusted his work schedule to be home more often, cited a potential client in town to explain his sudden availability. Vanessa seemed simultaneously relieved and irritated by his increased presence, her plans clearly complicated by his watchful eye. 3 days before Christmas, Nathaniel received a call from Preston. We've confirmed it. Reeves has been using your wife's connections to wealthy art collectors, people she met through coordinating those charity galas, to sell forgeries. We've traced 5 sales in the past 3 months alone, totaling just over $2 million. And Vanessa? She's aware. More than aware, she's the broker. Uses her legitimate art background as cover. They've been building this operation for at least 6 months. Nathaniel absorbed this information with cold clarity. What about their plans to leave? Scheduled for Christmas morning. One-way tickets to Buenos Aires for 3. Her, Reeves, and Lily. Departing at 7:30 a.m. Argentina, known for its reluctance to extradite certain types of financial criminals. The final piece clicked into place. Thank you, Preston, Nathaniel said. I'll need those security men we discussed in position by Christmas Eve. Already arranged. Are you sure about this approach, Nate? It's risky. Everything worth doing involves risk, Nathaniel replied, his tone betraying nothing of the calculated fury building inside him. The important thing is making sure the structure can bear the weight of what's coming. On December 23rd, Nathaniel presented Vanessa with an early Christmas gift, a delicate diamond bracelet. Her surprise seemed genuine, quickly replaced by an emotion that might have been guilt or perhaps simply calculation. It's beautiful, she murmured, allowing him to clasp it around her wrist. I thought you could wear it to your parents' house tomorrow night, he said pleasantly. For Christmas Eve dinner, Vanessa's fingers stilled on the diamonds. About that, I was thinking maybe we should stay home this year. Just the 3 of us. Have a quiet Christmas. Nathaniel smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. Nonsense. Your parents are expecting us. Besides, I've already told them we're coming. He kissed her cheek, noting how she stiffened at his touch. It's our tradition. One last perfect family Christmas. The words hung between them, laden with meaning. For a moment, something like fear flickered across Vanessa's face before she composed herself. Of course, she said finally. One last perfect Christmas. As he turned away, Nathaniel caught sight of his reflection in the window, his expression cool, detached, resolved. The coming storm would reshape everything. And unlike the woman who shared his home but no longer his trust, he was fully prepared for its destructive power. Chapter 3. Betrayal Unleashed. Christmas Eve dinner at the Hendersons' home, Vanessa's parents, proceeded with the strained joviality of people determined to maintain appearances. Diana Henderson fussed over the table settings while her husband, Bill, carved the prime rib with military precision, a remnant of his 30 years in the Army. Nathaniel watched Vanessa navigate the evening with practiced grace, laughing at her father's well-worn jokes, complimenting her mother's cooking. Only the occasional darting glance at her phone betrayed her anxiety. Lily sat quietly between her grandparents, picking at her food, her eyes moving between her parents with wary vigilance. "You're awfully quiet tonight, Nate," Bill Henderson remarked, refilling Nathaniel's wine glass. "Year-end projects keeping you busy?" "Just wrapping things up before taking some time off," Nathaniel replied easily. "I've been thinking it might be good for the three of us to take a trip after the holidays. Maybe somewhere warm." Vanessa's fork clattered against her plate. "A trip? You haven't mentioned any trip." Nathaniel smiled. "I wanted it to be a surprise. Part of your Christmas gift." Diana clapped her hands together. "What a wonderful idea. Where are you thinking of going?" "I was considering South America," Nathaniel said, his eyes fixed on his wife. "Argentina, perhaps. I hear Buenos Aires is beautiful this time of year." The color drained from Vanessa's face. Lily looked up sharply, her gaze moving between her parents. "Actually," Vanessa said, her voice unnaturally high, "Lily and I were discussing taking an art tour in Europe next summer." "Weren't we, sweetie?" Lily's expression remained impassive. "You discussed it, Mom." "I said I'd rather go to science camp." An uncomfortable silence descended on the table, broken only when Bill cleared his throat and launched into a story about his own travels in Europe during his military service. Nathaniel nursed his wine, watching Vanessa's composure crack incrementally throughout the remainder of dinner. By the time they arrived home, close to midnight, Vanessa was visibly agitated. She sent Lily upstairs to get ready for bed, then rounded on Nathaniel in the kitchen. "What was that about Argentina?" she demanded, keeping her voice low. Nathaniel leaned against the counter, the picture of casual indifference. "Just making conversation." "Why? Does Argentina mean something to you?" Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "Don't play games with me, Nathaniel." "Games?" He raised an eyebrow. "Like the game where you pretend to take art classes while you're actually meeting your lover? Or perhaps the game where you plan to kidnap our daughter and flee the country on Christmas morning?" The shock on Vanessa's face would have been satisfying if Nathaniel had been capable of feeling satisfaction in that moment. Instead, he felt only cold resolution. "How did you?" "No. I've known for months, Vanessa. Every meeting, every text, every forged painting you and Theodore have sold." He stepped closer. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice? That I wouldn't protect what's mine?" Fear replaced shock in Vanessa's expression. "Nate, you don't understand. Theo and I—" "Save it," Nathaniel cut her off. "I understand perfectly. You found someone who made you feel special, exciting. You decided our life, our family, wasn't enough." His voice remained steady, controlled. "But taking Lily? Involving her in your criminal enterprise? That crosses a line I can't forgive." Vanessa's posture changed, defiance replacing fear. "You were never there, Nathaniel. Always working, always focused on your precious buildings. Theo sees me. He values my intelligence, my talent. He values your connections to wealthy art collectors and your willingness to commit fraud," Nathaniel corrected her. "But more importantly, he's willing to use an 11-year-old girl as cover for his escape. Tell me, does that sound like love to you? Or opportunism?" Uncertainty flickered across Vanessa's face before she rallied. "You don't know anything about him. About us. I know he has 2 restraining orders from former partners. I know he left Chicago under investigation for art forgery. I know he's manipulating you just as effectively as you've been manipulating me." Nathaniel moved toward the stairs. "Pack whatever you want to take with you. Be gone by morning. But Lily stays here." Vanessa grabbed his arm. "You can't do this. She's my daughter too. A fact you should have considered before planning to take her to a country with no extradition treaty." Nathaniel removed her hand from his arm. "Good night, Vanessa. Merry Christmas." He climbed the stairs, hearing her frantic phone call begin as soon as he was out of sight. At the top of the landing, he found Lily sitting against the wall, knees pulled to her chest. "You heard all that," he stated rather than asked. She nodded, eyes wide. "Is Mom really a criminal?" Nathaniel sighed, sitting down beside her. "People make bad choices sometimes, especially when they're scared or think they're in love." "Were they really going to take me to Argentina tomorrow?" "They had tickets," Nathaniel confirmed. "But that's not going to happen now." Lily was quiet for a moment. Is Mom going to jail? That depends on her, Nathaniel said honestly. And on Theodore. They sat in silence until Lily's head began to nod with exhaustion. Nathaniel guided her to her room, waited until she was settled in bed. Dad, her voice was small in the darkened room. Will you be here when I wake up? Always, he promised. Now get some sleep. It's almost Christmas. Downstairs, Vanessa was still on the phone, her voice urgent and hushed. Nathaniel ignored her, going to his study to call Preston. How soon can your men be here? He asked without preamble. Already in position, Preston replied. You want to move up the timeline? Yes. She's contacting Reeves now. I don't want to wait until morning. Understood. I'll send the signal. Nathaniel hung up and returned to the living room, where Vanessa was furiously shoving items into a bag. Leaving so soon? He asked mildly. I thought you might at least wait to open presents. Go to hell, Nathaniel, she spat. This isn't over. I'll be back for Lily. No, he said simply. You won't. The doorbell rang, startling Vanessa. Nathaniel moved to answer it, revealing two police officers standing on the porch, Preston's private security, men visible in unmarked cars across the street. Mr. Russo, the lead officer inquired. We received a call about a domestic disturbance at this address. That's ridiculous, Vanessa interjected. There's no disturbance here. Actually, Nathaniel said calmly, my wife was just leaving. I believe she's meeting someone. He turned to the officers. Perhaps you could escort her? I'm concerned about her state of mind. She's been making threats. I have not. Vanessa's voice rose sharply. He's lying. He's trying to keep me from my daughter. The officers exchanged glances. One of them stepped forward. Ma'am, why don't we all calm down? Is there somewhere else you can stay tonight? A friend's place, perhaps. This is my house, Vanessa insisted, her composure fracturing. He can't just throw me out on Christmas Eve. Actually, Mrs. Russo, the second officer said, in domestic situations like this, we generally recommend a cooling-off period. If there's somewhere you can go, that would be best for everyone. Vanessa looked frantically between the officers and Nathaniel, realizing she was outmaneuvered. Fine, she snapped, grabbing her bag. I'm leaving. But this isn't over, Nathaniel. Not by a long shot. As she pushed past him toward the door, he leaned close to whisper in her ear, It was over the moment you decided to betray me. You just didn't know it yet. The officers escorted Vanessa to her car, watched as she drove away into the snowy night. One of them returned to speak with Nathaniel. We'll have a patrol car drive by periodically tonight, sir. Just as a precaution. Nathaniel thanked them, knowing Preston's men would provide much more effective surveillance. As the police left, he closed the door and stood alone in the entryway of his too-quiet home. The Christmas tree lights blinked steadily in the corner, illuminating wrapped presents that would never be opened as intended. He climbed the stairs again, checking on Lily before going to the master bedroom. Opening the safe hidden behind a painting, one of Vanessa's early works, ironically, he removed a flash drive and several folders of documents. Everything was in place for tomorrow. Christmas morning would bring no celebration, no family breakfast, no traditional opening of gifts. Instead, it would herald the beginning of Nathaniel Russo's meticulously engineered retribution, a structural collapse designed to bring maximum damage to those who had dared to undermine his foundation. Chapter 4: Shattered Illusions. Christmas morning dawned cold and clear, sunlight refracting through frost-covered windows into the silent house. Nathaniel had barely slept, spending most of the night coordinating with Preston and reviewing the final details of his plan. By 6 a.m., he had confirmation that Vanessa had spent the night at Theodore Reeves' apartment and that their 7:30 a.m. flight to Buenos Aires had been canceled, at his instruction, through channels that couldn't be traced back to him. He made coffee and waited, knowing what would come next. The house security system alerted him to movement at the front door at precisely 6:42 a.m. The camera feed showed Vanessa and Theodore, their expressions tense as they tried the door, found it locked, then moved around to the back entrance. Nathaniel pressed a button on his phone, activating the house's external speaker system. Good morning, Vanessa. Theodore, the doors are locked, and attempting to break in would trigger an immediate police response. His voice, amplified and dispassionate, caused both to startle and look around for cameras. If you're here for Lily, you should know she's not available for international travel today or any other day. Theodore stepped forward, his handsome face contorted with anger. Listen, you controlling asshole. No, you listen, Nathaniel interrupted. I have evidence of every forged painting you've sold, every fraudulent transaction, every communication planning your little escape. At this moment, that evidence is being held by my attorney with instructions to release it to the FBI, Interpol, and the relevant art authorities if anything happens to me or my daughter. Vanessa's face paled. She grabbed Theodore's arm, murmuring something Nathaniel couldn't hear. Theodore shook her off. You're bluffing, Theodore called out. You've got nothing. The Monet sold to Harold Fincher last month. The counterfeit Degas to the Brennan Foundation. The fake Picasso sketch to Senator Wilson's wife. Nathaniel listed them calmly. Shall I continue? Perhaps mention the offshore account in the Caymans where you've been depositing the proceeds? Or the storage unit in Theodore's mother's name, where you keep your supplies and unsold inventory. The stunned silence that followed told Nathaniel all he needed to know. Vanessa recovered first, stepping closer to the nearest camera. What do you want, Nathaniel? Money? We can pay you. With what? The funds you stole from our joint accounts? Or the proceeds from your crimes? Nathaniel's tone remained even. I'm not interested in your money, Vanessa. What I want is much simpler. I want you both to disappear from my life and Lily's. Permanently. Theodore laughed, an ugly sound. Or what? You'll ruin yourself too? Your wife's involved. Your reputation would be destroyed. A reasonable assumption, Nathaniel conceded. Except for one detail. I've spent the past month ensuring that all evidence points exclusively to you two. Vanessa's involvement appears coerced. A woman manipulated by a predatory man with a history of exactly such behavior. A simple investigation would reveal those restraining orders. Theodore, your pattern. Theodore's face contorted with rage. He lunged toward the back door, slamming his shoulder against it. The reinforced lock held firm. I would strongly advise against property damage, Nathaniel continued. The security system has already alerted the police. They should be arriving in approximately 3 minutes. As if on cue, distant sirens became audible. Vanessa grabbed Theodore's arm, pulling him away from the door. This isn't over, Theodore shouted toward the camera. You think you've won, but you have no idea who you're dealing with. Actually, I know exactly who I'm dealing with, Nathaniel replied. A second-rate artist who turned to forgery because his own work never measured up. A man who seduces vulnerable women, exploits their connections, then discards them when they're no longer useful. Your pattern is remarkably consistent, Theodore. The sirens grew louder. Vanessa's expression shifted from anger to fear. Nate, please, she pleaded, a calculated tremor in her voice. Think about Lily. She needs her mother. You forfeited that consideration when you planned to use her as cover for your escape, Nathaniel responded. The police will be here momentarily. I suggest you both leave unless you want to explain why you're attempting to break into my home on Christmas morning. Theodore grabbed Vanessa's arm roughly, dragging her toward the side gate. This isn't finished, Russo. Nathaniel watched through the security feed as they hurried to Theodore's Audi parked a block away, pulling out just as a patrol car turned onto the street. Perfect timing, as he'd arranged with Preston's contact in the local police department. Upstairs, he heard Lily's door open. Switching off the security monitor, he went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast, arranging his features into a calm expression before his daughter appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas. Merry Christmas, Lily, he said, setting a plate of pancakes on the counter. Hungry? She looked around the empty kitchen. Where's Mom? She decided to spend Christmas with her friend, Nathaniel replied carefully. It's just us today. Lily climbed onto a stool at the counter, her expression far too serious for a child on Christmas morning. I heard voices outside, and sirens. Nathaniel hesitated, then decided on honesty. Your mother and Theodore came by. They wanted to take you with them, but I didn't think that was a good idea. Because they're criminals? Lily asked bluntly. Because they wanted to take you to another country without discussing it with me, Nathaniel corrected. The other issues are complicated adult problems that you don't need to worry about. Lily poked at her pancakes. Are you going to send Mom to jail? The question caught Nathaniel off guard. Not because of its content, but because of the detached curiosity in his daughter's tone. No tears, no distress, just analytical inquiry, so like his own approach. That depends on what happens next, he answered truthfully. I've given her a chance to make better choices. Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. Can we still open presents? Of course. Nathaniel managed a smile. That's what Christmas is for, right? They moved to the living room, where the pile of wrapped gifts seemed excessive in the absence of 1/3 of their family. Lily opened her presents methodically, expressing appropriate gratitude for each item, but without the exuberance of previous years. Nathaniel found her restraint both admirable and heartbreaking. When the last gift had been unwrapped, Lily looked around the room, then up at her father. There's nothing for Mom. She probably took her gifts with her, Nathaniel said, trying to soften the blow. Lily shook her head. No, I saw her wrapping stuff last week. There was a big box with my name on it. She stood, moving to the hall closet, and pulled out a large package wrapped in silver paper. Here it is. Nathaniel felt a flicker of unease. Maybe we should wait. But Lily was already tearing away the paper, revealing a plain cardboard box. She opened it and removed an envelope, then a framed photograph of herself with Vanessa and Theodore at what appeared to be an amusement park, an outing Nathaniel had known nothing about. Beneath it lay brochures for international schools in Buenos Aires. What is this? Lily asked, her voice small. Nathaniel took the envelope from her hands, opening it to find airline tickets and Argentine visa applications with Lily's and Vanessa's names. There was also a handwritten note. Lily, by the time you open this, we'll be starting our new adventure. Theo has friends in Argentina who can help us build a wonderful new life. I know you'll miss your father, but sometimes adults grow apart. You'll understand when you're older. Theo is so excited to be your new dad. Love, Mom. Nathaniel carefully folded the note, his composure threatening to crack for the first time. The callousness of it, preparing this gift for Lily, planning to spring it on her Christmas morning with no warning, no preparation, sparked a rage he struggled to contain. Lily stared at the items spread before her, her expression unreadable. Then, with deliberate movements, she gathered everything and walked to the fireplace where a small fire was burning. One by one, she fed the brochures, the photo, and finally the note into the flames. Lily, Nathaniel began, uncertain what to say. It's okay, Dad, she said, her voice steadier than his would have been. I know who loves me and who doesn't. The moment was interrupted by Nathaniel's phone. Preston's name flashed on the screen. Excuse me for a minute, he told Lily, stepping into his study to take the call. They're on the move, Preston reported without preamble. Heading to the storage unit, just as you predicted. My guys are in position, and the FBI contact, ready to receive the anonymous tip as soon as they start loading the van. We've confirmed they rented a vehicle this morning. Looks like they're planning to drive to Mexico. Nathaniel considered this information. Let them load at least half the forgeries. We need enough evidence to make the charges stick. Understood. What about the girl? You mentioned there was an incident this morning. Handled, Nathaniel replied, but I'd like to move up our timeline. I don't want to give them time to regroup. Consider it done, Preston assured him. I'll call when they're in custody. Nathaniel ended the call and returned to the living room, where Lily had begun cleaning up the discarded wrapping paper. Such a conscientious child, even in the midst of emotional trauma. He felt a surge of protectiveness, coupled with renewed resolve. How about we go out for lunch? He suggested. There's a diner on Main Street that's open today. Lily looked up, surprised by the normality of the suggestion. Can we get milkshakes? Absolutely, Nathaniel smiled, a genuine expression this time. It's Christmas after all. As they prepared to leave, Nathaniel received a text from Preston. Package secured. Delivery in progress. The FBI had Theodore and Vanessa in custody, caught red-handed with dozens of forged masterpieces and the materials to create more. Phase 1 of his plan was complete. The public downfall would soon follow, but more importantly, Lily was safe. As they drove to the diner, Nathaniel glanced at his daughter in the passenger seat, her face turned toward the window expression somber beyond her years. "It's going to get better," he promised. "Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will get better." Lily turned to look at him, her green eyes, his eyes, wise and evaluating. "I know, Dad," she said simply. "We're going to be okay." For the first time since discovering his wife's betrayal, Nathaniel believed it might be true. Chapter 5. Broken Foundations. New Year's Eve arrived with a flurry of media attention following the arrests of Theodore Reeves and Vanessa Russo. The art forgery scheme had made national headlines, particularly given the high-profile victims and the dramatic Christmas Day raid on a storage facility filled with counterfeit masterpieces. Nathaniel had kept Lily insulated from the worst of it, sending her to stay with her grandparents for a few days while he dealt with the immediate fallout. Bill and Diana Henderson had been devastated by their daughter's actions, their initial disbelief giving way to anger and shame as evidence mounted. They had welcomed Lily with open arms, their devotion to their granddaughter unwavering despite the turmoil. Nathaniel sat in his attorney's office, reviewing the latest developments. Maxwell Ortiz, a sharp-featured man with 30 years of experience navigating high-stakes legal battles, tapped a folder on his desk. "The prosecution has a solid case against Reeves," Maxwell explained. "Multiple counts of fraud, forgery, conspiracy, interstate transport of stolen property. He's looking at 15 to 20 years minimum." "And Vanessa?" Nathaniel asked, his tone neutral. Maxwell's expression tightened. "That's more complicated. Her attorney is pushing a narrative that she was manipulated, coerced. They're highlighting Reeves' history with women, suggesting she feared for her safety and Lily's if she didn't cooperate." Nathaniel's jaw clenched. "That's absurd. She was an active participant." "Perhaps, but perception matters in these cases. A frightened mother, a controlling lover with a history of abuse allegations. It's a sympathetic story." Maxwell leaned forward. "The real issue is her continued insistence on shared custody of Lily. Despite everything, she's fighting for access to her daughter. This was expected, though still infuriating." Nathaniel had already set countermeasures in motion, but he needed to appear appropriately concerned. "What are our options?" "We emphasize the Argentina plan," Maxwell replied. "The fact that she was prepared to take Lily out of the country without your knowledge or consent. The visa applications, the international school brochures, they're damning evidence of parental kidnapping intentions." Nathaniel nodded. "And the forgery involvement? We argue that she exposed Lily to criminal enterprise, created an environment of moral hazard." The prosecutors are receptive to this angle, particularly given the scale of the operation. Their discussion was interrupted by Maxwell's assistant announcing a call from the district attorney's office. Maxwell excused himself, leaving Nathaniel alone with his thoughts. The plan was progressing as designed, but Nathaniel found himself troubled by Lily's withdrawal over the past week. She'd become increasingly quiet, spending hours in her room with her books and computer. When questioned, she insisted she was fine, but the shadow behind her eyes told a different story. Maxwell returned, his expression grim. "There's been a development. Vanessa is offering to testify against Reeves in exchange for leniency." "What kind of leniency?" "Reduced charges, probation instead of jail time, and, this is the sticking point, supervised visitation with Lily." Nathaniel stood, moving to the window that overlooked the city. "Is the DA receptive?" "They're considering it. Reeves is the bigger fish, and Vanessa's testimony would strengthen their case considerably." Maxwell paused. "There's something else. Reeves is claiming you framed them both, that you planted evidence and orchestrated the entire situation out of jealousy." A calculated response. Nathaniel had anticipated this move, had prepared for it. "And what proof does he offer for this absurd claim?" "None so far. But his attorney is requesting detailed financial records from both you and Vanessa, looking for irregularities in the months leading up to the arrests." "They won't find anything," Nathaniel stated with certainty. He'd been meticulous, using untraceable channels for his activities. "Grant them whatever they request. I have nothing to hide." Maxwell studied him carefully. "Are you sure about that?" "Even the most careful man leaves traces." "I'm not most men," Nathaniel replied. "My focus has always been protecting Lily. Nothing more." When he returned home that afternoon, Nathaniel found Lily sitting at the kitchen counter, her school tablet open to a news article about the case. She looked up as he entered, her expression carefully controlled. "Why didn't you tell me Mom might go to jail?" she asked without preamble. Nathaniel sighed, setting down his briefcase. "I was hoping to shield you from the worst of this, Lily. I'm not a baby dad. I can handle the truth." Her chin lifted defiantly. "The kids at school are talking. They're saying Mom and her boyfriend are criminals, that they stole millions of dollars." "It's complicated. Is it true?" Lily interrupted. "Did Mom really help him steal all that money?" Nathaniel considered his response carefully. Lily deserved honesty, but he needed to balance truth with age-appropriate explanations. "Your mother made some very bad choices," he said finally. "She got involved with a man who convinced her to do things that were wrong and illegal. They sold fake paintings to people who thought they were buying real, valuable art." Lily processed this, her analytical mind visibly working through the implications. "And they were going to take me to Argentina because they were running away from getting caught." "Yes," Nathaniel confirmed. "That appears to have been the plan." "Would we ever have come back?" The question cut straight to Nathaniel's core fear. "I don't know, sweetheart. I hope your mother would have realized how much you need both parents. But she didn't care what I needed," Lily interrupted, her voice cracking for the first time. "She was just going to take me away from you, from school, from Grandma and Grandpa. She didn't even ask what I wanted." Nathaniel moved to embrace his daughter, but she slid off the stool, stepping back. "I heard you on the phone," she said, her eyes suddenly hard. "You knew what they were doing for a long time, didn't you? You were watching them, gathering evidence." Nathaniel felt a chill at the accusation in her tone. "I was trying to understand what was happening, yes. Why didn't you stop them sooner? Before Christmas?" "Before." She broke off, swallowing hard. "I needed to be sure," Nathaniel explained, choosing his word with care. "Adult relationships are complicated, Lily. I wanted to give your mother every chance to make better choices." Lily shook her head. "You wanted revenge. You wanted to hurt her like she hurt you." The perceptiveness of the statement left Nathaniel momentarily speechless. There was truth in her words, more than he cared to admit, even to himself. "I wanted justice," he corrected gently. "And most importantly, I wanted to keep you safe." "I don't feel safe," Lily said quietly. "I feel like everything is broken and no one's telling me the whole truth." Before Nathaniel could respond, his phone rang. Preston's number. He hesitated, torn between his daughter's emotional needs and the next phase of his plan. "Take it," Lily said, turning away. "It's probably important. Your justice stuff." "Lily, I'm going to my room. I have homework." She gathered her tablet and left without looking back, her small shoulders rigid with hurt and anger. Nathaniel answered the call, moving to his study for privacy. "We have a situation," Preston said without preamble. "Reeves made contact with an associate this morning. A man named Curtis Donovan, former cellmate from a fraud stint Reeves did in Illinois 5 years ago. They met at the county jail during visiting hours." "What's Donovan's background?" "Nasty piece of work. Specializes in intimidation, blackmail. Did time for aggravated assault and extortion. He's been watching your house." Nathaniel's blood ran cold. "When?" "My guys spotted him doing drive-bys yesterday and today. He also followed Lily's school bus this morning." "Increase security immediately," Nathaniel ordered. "I want eyes on Lily at all times. And find out everything you can about this Donovan character, associates, haunts, weaknesses." "Already on it. There's something else you should know. Vanessa made bail an hour ago. Her parents put up their house as collateral. This was unexpected. Bill and Diana had seemed so devastated by their daughter's actions, so supportive of Nathaniel's position. Who's representing her? New attorney. Guy named Lawrence Frost, specializes in high-profile criminal cases with a domestic violence angle. Word is he's building a case that you were emotionally abusive, that Vanessa fled with Reeves out of fear. Nathaniel's mind raced through contingencies. This narrative could complicate matters, potentially generate public sympathy for Vanessa. More concerning was the threat to Lily's safety if Donovan was indeed surveilling them on Reeves' behalf. "I need to move up our timeline," Nathaniel decided. "Execute Phase 3 tonight." That's aggressive, Preston cautioned. We haven't fully verified the offshore accounts yet. We know enough. Reeves is escalating by bringing in Donovan. I won't risk Lily's safety while we'd every I and cross every T. Understood. I'll make the calls. Nathaniel ended the call and moved to the window, checking the street outside. Nothing seemed amiss, but the knowledge that they were being watched, that Lily was being watched, filled him with cold fury. He called Maxwell Ortiz next, updating him on the new developments and requesting an emergency hearing regarding Lily's custody and safety. Then he contacted the private school Lily attended, speaking with the principal about security concerns and arranging for Lily to be temporarily tutored at home. By evening, the pieces were in motion. Preston's team had located 3 offshore accounts linked to Reeves, each containing portions of the proceeds from the forgery scheme. Anonymous tips to financial authorities in 3 countries would trigger simultaneous freezes on the accounts, effectively stranding any accomplices Reeves might have been counting on. Meanwhile, a carefully curated dossier on Curtis Donovan had been delivered to his parole officer, documenting his association with Reeves and his surveillance activities, a clear violation of his parole terms. Local police were preparing to bring him in for questioning. As Nathaniel reviewed the final arrangements, Maxwell called with news from the DA's office. Vanessa had provided a full statement, implicating Reeves as the mastermind while portraying herself as a victim of manipulation and emotional abuse. More troublingly, she had included allegations that Nathaniel had been controlling and emotionally distant throughout their marriage, creating an environment she felt compelled to escape. She's laying groundwork for a custody battle, Maxwell warned, painting herself as a desperate mother trying to protect her child from a cold, controlling father. What's the DA's position? They're skeptical, but proceeding cautiously. Her cooperation against Reeves has value to them, regardless of her motives. Nathaniel ended the call and went to check on Lily, finding her bedroom door closed. He knocked gently. Lily, can I come in? We need to talk. No response. He knocked again, then tried the handle. The door was locked, something she'd never done before. Lily, please open the door. It's important. Silence. A tendril of panic wound through Nathaniel's chest. He knocked more firmly. Lily, open this door right now, or I'll have to break it open. Finally, he heard movement inside. The lock clicked, and the door opened slightly. Lily stood there, her face tear-streaked but composed. What? She asked flatly. Relief washed through him, quickly followed by concern at her obvious distress. We need to discuss some changes for tomorrow. You won't be going to school for a few days. Because of the man who's been following me? Lily interrupted. I saw him. Black car, baseball cap. He was outside school yesterday and today. Nathaniel stared at his daughter, once again caught off guard by her perceptiveness. You noticed him? I notice everything, she said simply. Mom's boyfriend sent him, didn't he? To scare us. We think so, yes. Which is why you'll be staying home until we resolve the situation. A tutor will come here instead. Lily nodded, seemingly unsurprised. Is Mom coming back? She's out on bail, Nathaniel admitted. But there's a restraining order preventing her from contacting you or coming here. Lily digested this information, then asked, what happens next? It was the same question Nathaniel had been asking himself. His carefully constructed plan had accounted for most contingencies, but Vanessa's new strategy and Reeves' escalation with Donovan introduced variables he hadn't fully anticipated. We stay safe, he answered. We follow the legal process, and we trust that the truth will prevail. Lily studied him with those penetrating green eyes that missed nothing. You're going to hurt them back, aren't you? Mom and her boyfriend. You're planning something. Nathaniel maintained his composure, though inwardly he marveled at his daughter's intuition. I'm ensuring justice is served, Lily. Nothing more. Justice or revenge? She asked, echoing her earlier accusation. What's the difference? It was a profound question from an 11-year-old, one that struck at the heart of Nathaniel's motivations. He had told himself his actions were about protection, about justice. But the satisfaction he felt at each stage of Vanessa and Theodore's downfall suggested otherwise. Sometimes there isn't much difference, he admitted finally. But my priority has always been keeping you safe. Lily seemed to accept this, nodding slightly. Okay. Good night, Dad. She closed the door before he could respond. Nathaniel stood there for a moment, unsettled by the conversation. His daughter was watching him, judging his actions against his words, developing her own moral framework in the midst of this chaos. He needed to be careful about the example he was setting, the lesson she was learning about power, retribution, and forgiveness. Yet even as this thought formed, he returned to his study to finalize the next phase of Theodore Reeves' destruction. By midnight, everything was in place. Anonymous tips had been delivered to financial authorities in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and Panama. Curtis Donovan had been detained for parole violations. A detailed dossier on Theodore Reeves' forgery operation had been leaked to a prominent investigative journalist, ensuring continued media attention. As New Year's Eve celebrations played out across the city, Nathaniel Russo sat alone in his study, a glass of whiskey in hand, reviewing what remained of his plan. The foundations of Vanessa and Theodore's lives were crumbling, just as his own had when he discovered their betrayal. Yet the hollow victory brought him less satisfaction than anticipated. Upstairs, his daughter slept, or pretended to sleep, carrying emotional wounds that might never fully heal. The collateral damage of his retribution was becoming apparent, casting shadows over the justice he'd so meticulously engineered. As midnight approached, Nathaniel made a call, not to Preston or Maxwell, but to Diana Henderson, Vanessa's mother. "I need to speak with you and Bill," he said when she answered. "About Lily and about Vanessa." "Now?" Diana sounded surprised. "It's almost midnight. Tomorrow then. Early, before you visit Vanessa again." A pause. "How did you know we were visiting her?" "The same way I know about the bail money. The same way I know about everything, Diana." Nathaniel kept his voice level. "I'm not your enemy, but I need to ensure we're all prioritizing Lily's well-being in what comes next." Another pause, longer this time. "Bill and I love Lily more than anything. You know that." "I do, which is why we need to talk about the future and about the story Vanessa is constructing with her new attorney." Diana sighed, a sound heavy with resignation. 9 a.m. "We'll be there." Nathaniel ended the call and moved to the window, watching as fireworks began to illuminate the night sky, heralding the arrival of a new year. A clean slate for some, but for him and Lily, merely the next phase in a carefully orchestrated reckoning. The question Lily had posed lingered in his mind. Justice or revenge? Perhaps the answer lay not in the actions themselves, but in what remained when the dust settled, and whether anything could be rebuilt from the ruins of broken trust. Chapter 6. The Devil's Bargain. "She's a pathological liar." Diana Henderson's voice quavered with emotion as she sat across from Nathaniel in his living room the following morning. January 1st. A day for fresh starts that instead found them excavating painful truths. "I love my daughter, but I can't ignore what she's done." Bill Henderson, ramrod straight in his armchair, nodded grimly. "We raised her better than this. The story she's telling now, about you being controlling, about feeling trapped, they don't match the woman who gushed about her wonderful husband for 10 years. Nathaniel had invited Vanessa's parents over while Lily was still asleep, needing to understand their position and secure their support before the next phase of his plan. "Yet you paid her bail," Nathaniel observed, keeping his tone neutral. Diana and Bill exchanged glances. "She's still our daughter," Diana said quietly. "We couldn't bear the thought of her in jail, regardless of what she's done. But that doesn't mean we support her actions or her lies." "What exactly is she saying?" Nathaniel asked, though Preston had already provided him with detailed reports of Vanessa's statements. Bill's jaw tightened. "That you were emotionally abusive, controlling with money, isolating her from friends, dismissive of her art. That she felt trapped and afraid, and Reeves offered her a way out. And you don't believe this narrative?" "Of course not," Diana answered firmly. "We've seen how you've treated her for 12 years, with respect, generosity, support. The vacations, the art studio you built her, the way you've encouraged her career. These aren't the actions of an abusive husband." Nathaniel nodded, relieved by their conviction despite having expected it. "I'm concerned about how these allegations will affect Lily. She's already struggling with her mother's betrayal. Hearing Vanessa paint me as some kind of monster will only confuse her further. Which is why we're here, Bill interjected. We want you to know that we stand with you and Lily. We won't support Vanessa's attempts to rewrite history or gain custody, even if it means testifying against your daughter. Nathaniel asked, watching their reactions carefully. The question hung heavily in the air. Diana's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. If necessary, yes. Lily's welfare comes first. Always. Nathaniel felt a measure of his tension ease. Having Vanessa's parents as allies would significantly strengthen his position in any custody battle. Thank you, he said sincerely. There's something else you should be aware of. Theodore has apparently enlisted an associate with a violent history to surveil our home and Lily's school. The police detained him last night, but there may be others. Diana gasped. My God, is Lily safe? She's staying home from school for now, with security in place. Nathaniel leaned forward. But this escalation concerns me. It suggests Theodore is growing desperate, willing to resort to intimidation or worse. Bill's military bearing became more pronounced. What can we do to help? When you visit Vanessa today, I need you to convey the severity of the situation. Make her understand that associating with Theodore at this point is dangerous for everyone, especially Lily. If she truly cares for her daughter, she needs to sever all ties with him immediately. She claims she already has, Diana said uncertainly. That she's seen his true colors now, that he's threatened to implicate her more deeply if she doesn't support his version of events. This was new information. Nathaniel filed it away for further consideration. Then she should have no objection to providing a complete statement to that effect, acknowledging his manipulation, but also her own willing participation in the forgery scheme. Bill nodded decisively. We'll make it clear that her relationship with Lily depends on full honesty from this point forward. The conversation was interrupted by the sound of footsteps on the stairs. Lily appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas, her expression brightening slightly at the sight of her grandparents. Grandma? Grandpa? What are you doing here? Diana opened her arms, and Lily moved into her embrace. Happy New Year, sweetheart. We came to see how you and your dad are doing. Lily looked between the adults, her perceptiveness evident. You're talking about Mom, aren't you? The adults exchanged glances. Nathaniel decided on honesty. Yes, we were discussing the legal situation and making plans to keep you safe. From the man in the black car? Lily asked. Bill's expression darkened. Someone's been watching you? Not anymore, Nathaniel assured him. The situation is being handled. Diana kept her arm around Lily. How about some breakfast? I could make those special pancakes you like. While Diana took Lily to the kitchen, Nathaniel and Bill continued their conversation in lowered tones. There's something else, Nathaniel said. Reeves is claiming I framed them both, that I orchestrated the entire situation out of jealousy. Bill scoffed. That's absurd. The evidence is overwhelming. Nevertheless, his attorney is pushing this narrative. If it gains traction, it could complicate matters. Nathaniel fixed Bill with a direct look. I need to know if Vanessa has mentioned anything that could support this claim. Bill considered the question carefully. She hasn't said anything specific to us. But her attorney, this Frost character, keeps asking about your past. Whether you've ever been vengeful or calculating with people who crossed you. This was concerning, but not unexpected. Nathaniel had prepared for scrutiny of his character and history. I've never been vengeful, he stated. Calculated, certainly. I'm an engineer. Precision and planning are fundamental to what I do. But my focus has always been on protecting what matters, not punishing those who don't. Bill nodded, seemingly satisfied. That's what we've told them. That you're methodical and protective, not vindictive. He hesitated. Though I must admit, if someone had done to me what Vanessa and Reeves did to you, I might not have been so measured in my response. The conversation shifted as they joined Diana and Lily in the kitchen, where the domestic normalcy of pancake making provided a temporary respite from the surrounding chaos. Nathaniel observed his daughter's interactions with her grandparents, noting how she relaxed in their presence despite the undercurrent of tension. After breakfast, while Lily showed her grandfather a science project in her room, Nathaniel pulled Diana aside. There's one more thing, he said quietly. I need to know about Vanessa's childhood. Specifically, any incidents or patterns that might explain her capacity for deception. Diana's expression grew troubled. Why are you asking this now? Because understanding her psychological makeup could be crucial in predicting her next moves, Nathaniel explained. And because Lily has Vanessa's DNA. If there are inherited tendencies towards certain behaviors, I need to be aware. Diana glanced toward the stairs, ensuring they wouldn't be overheard. There were issues. From an early age, small lies at first, then elaborate fabrications. A psychiatrist once mentioned potential borderline traits, but we never pursued a formal diagnosis. Bill's military career meant frequent moves, and mental health wasn't discussed as openly then. And as an adult, she seemed to outgrow the worst of it, Diana said hesitantly. Or perhaps just became better at hiding it. There were incidents in college, accusations of plagiarism, a roommate who claimed Vanessa had stolen from her. But nothing conclusive. This information filled in gaps in Nathaniel's understanding of his wife. He'd witnessed her occasional embellishments, her selective recounting of events, but had attributed these to an artistic temperament rather than a deeper pattern of deception. Thank you for your honesty, he said. This helps me understand what we're dealing with. After the Hendersons left, promising to speak with Vanessa about severing ties with Theodore, Nathaniel received a call from Preston. Donovan's been released, Preston reported. Insufficient evidence to hold him on a parole violation. But we got eyes on him. And the offshore accounts? Frozen, as planned. Authorities in 3 countries are investigating. Reeves won't be accessing those funds anytime soon, if ever. Nathaniel processed this information. What's our intelligence on Vanessa's movements? She spent last night at a hotel downtown. Made several calls to Reeves at the county jail, plus one to her attorney. This morning she checked out and went to a rental property in Oak Ridge Heights. Small house, monthly lease, paid in cash. Interestingly, the lease was signed 3 weeks ago. Before Christmas, Nathaniel noted. A contingency plan in case their Argentina scheme failed. Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. The rental agreement lists 2 tenants, Vanessa Russo and Curtis Donovan. The implications were immediate and disturbing. So Donovan isn't just Reeves' associate. He's directly connected to Vanessa as well. It appears so. We're still piecing together the relationship, but preliminary information suggests they may have known each other before, possibly through Reeves. This changed the dynamics significantly. If Vanessa had her own connections to Donovan, independent of Theodore, her claims of being manipulated by Reeves became even less credible. I want round-the-clock surveillance on that rental property, Nathaniel instructed, and enhanced security here. If Vanessa and Donovan are working together, Lily could be at greater risk than we thought. After ending the call, Nathaniel found Lily in the living room, organizing her school materials for the tutor who would arrive the next day. "Who was that?" she asked, looking up from her books. "Just business," Nathaniel replied automatically, then reconsidered. Lily deserved more transparency than that. Actually, it was about security. We're taking extra precautions for a while. Lily nodded, unsurprised. Because of Mom and her boyfriend? Yes, and possibly others connected to them. Others like the man in the black car? Nathaniel sat beside her on the couch. "Lily, I promise you're safe. I won't let anyone harm you." She studied him with those unervingly perceptive eyes. "I know. You always have a plan." Then, after a pause, "Dad, if Mom really did all these bad things, why isn't she in jail like her boyfriend?" It was a fair question, one that had been troubling Nathaniel as well. The legal system is complicated. Sometimes people get bail while they wait for trial. And sometimes, if they help the authorities catch bigger criminals, they get lighter punishments. So, Mom might not go to jail at all, even though she helped steal all that money. That's possible, yes. Nathaniel chose his words carefully. But even if she doesn't go to jail, there will be consequences. Legal restrictions, financial penalties, a criminal record. Lily considered this. What about me? Will I have to live with her sometimes? The question cut to the heart of Nathaniel's concerns. Not if I can help it. Your mother's actions have demonstrated that she's not currently capable of providing a safe, stable environment for you. Good, Lily said firmly. Because I don't want to see her. Not ever. The vehemence in her tone was both reassuring and troubling. Nathaniel wanted Lily protected from Vanessa's influence, but he worried about the long-term psychological impact of such absolute estrangement. Feelings can change over time, he said gently. Right now, you're understandably angry and hurt, but someday you might feel differently. No, Lily shook her head decisively. She lied to me. For months. She was going to take me away from you and everything I know. She chose him over us. Her voice hardened with a conviction that echoed Nathaniel's own unforgiving nature. I'll never forgive her. Never. Nathaniel recognized his own ruthlessness reflected in his daughter's declaration, a trait he'd cultivated in himself but had hoped to soften in her. Yet he couldn't deny the pragmatic value of such resolution in a world that often rewarded the brutal over the forgiving. That's your choice to make, he said finally. Just know that I'll support you whatever you decide, now or in the future. The rest of the day passed quietly, a deceptive calm before the storm that Nathaniel knew was brewing. By evening, Preston reported that Curtis Donovan had made 3 visits to the county jail, presumably to see Theodore Reeves, and had subsequently met with 2 unidentified men at a bar known for connections to local criminal elements. They're planning something, Preston concluded. We should move Lily to a secure location as a precaution. Nathaniel considered this recommendation. Moving Lily would be disruptive and potentially traumatizing after all she'd already endured. Yet leaving her at risk was unthinkable. Not yet, he decided. Increase security here first. Let's see what develops in the next 24 hours. The decision proved prescient. Shortly after midnight, Preston called again. We've intercepted communications between Reeves and Donovan. They're planning to take Lily tomorrow. Use her as leverage to force you to drop charges and return seized assets. Cold fury swept through Nathaniel. How are they communicating? Reeves is in jail. Corrupt guard. We've identified him and notified internal affairs, but that's not our immediate concern. Vanessa appears to be involved in the planning. She's provided details about Lily's routine, the house layout, security vulnerabilities. This final betrayal solidified Nathaniel's resolve. Any lingering doubt about the necessity of his retribution vanished in the face of this direct threat to Lily. Execute Phase 4, he ordered. All of it. Now, are you sure? Preston sounded hesitant. Once this is in motion, they've crossed the final line, Nathaniel cut him off. No more measure responses. No more legal niceties. They plan to use my daughter as a hostage. There's no coming back from that. After ending the call, Nathaniel checked on Lily, finding her asleep with a book still open beside her. He gently removed the book and pulled the covers up, studying her peaceful face in the dim light. Everything he'd done, everything he was about to do, was ultimately for her protection. He had to believe that justified the means, regardless of how ruthless those means might be. Returning to his study, Nathaniel initiated a series of prearranged signals to operatives positioned around the city. By dawn, Theodore Reeves' complete criminal history would be exposed to every law enforcement agency and news outlet in the country. The corrupt guard would be arrested mid-shift. Vanessa's involvement in planning Lily's abduction would be documented and delivered to the district attorney, her bail revoked. And Curtis Donovan, the man who had dared to target Nathaniel's daughter, would face a particularly tailored form of justice, one that would ensure he never posed a threat to anyone again. As Nathaniel set these wheels in motion, he felt a cold clarity that had eluded him in recent days. This wasn't about justice anymore, nor even revenge in its purest sense. This was about elimination of threats, permanent, irrevocable removal of anyone who endangered what he held most precious. By morning, their worlds would be in ashes, while he and Lily would emerge unscathed, ready to rebuild from the ruins of betrayal. Chapter 7, Scorched Earth. The coordinated strike began at dawn. Nathaniel, who hadn't slept, watched the operations unfold through reports from Preston's team. At 5:17 a.m., the corrupt prison guard was taken into custody while attempting to smuggle communications between Theodore Reeves and Curtis Donovan. By 5:42, police had surrounded the rental property where Vanessa was staying, a SWAT team ready to breach based on credible kidnapping conspiracy charges. Nathaniel stood at his bedroom window, phone in hand, as Preston narrated the raid in real time. Police entering now. They've secured the main floor. Bedroom clear. Bathroom clear. Donovan not on premises. Vanessa Russo in custody. Appears to be destroying evidence, shredding documents, attempting to delete phone data. And the evidence package? Nathaniel asked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. Delivered to Captain Reynolds personally, as arranged. Full digital surveillance records, transcripts of planning discussions, financial transfers between Donovan and Reeves. Excellent. Nathaniel checked his watch. What about Donovan? Still locating. Last track to the East Harbor District. 3 teams in pursuit. Nathaniel ended the call as soft footsteps approached his door. Lily stood in the hallway, her hair tousled from sleep, expression questioning. Dad? What's happening? I heard your phone. Just some work matters, Nathaniel replied, adjusting his tone to something approximating normal. It's very early. You should go back to bed. Lily's eyes narrowed slightly, that familiar analytical look. Is it about Mom? I heard you say her name. Nathaniel considered his options. Lying would only damage trust, but the full truth might be too harsh. Yes, he admitted. There have been some developments. The police are involved, but everything's under control. We can talk more after you've had some sleep. Lily didn't move. They were going to try to take me, weren't they? That's why there are more security people outside. Sometimes his daughter's perceptiveness was startling. How did you know about the security? I saw them when I got up to use the bathroom. 2 men on our front lawn. They weren't there yesterday. She wrapped her arms around herself. It's okay. You don't have to pretend things are normal. I know they're not. Nathaniel crossed the room and knelt before her, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. You're right. Things aren't normal right now. But I promise you this. You are safe. I will never let anyone hurt you or take you away. I know, she said simply, with a child's faith that simultaneously strengthened his resolve and broke his heart. You always fix things. After ensuring Lily returned to bed, Nathaniel descended to his study to monitor the continuing operations. By 7 a.m., the news was reporting the arrest of Vanessa Russo on conspiracy charges related to the art forgery case, though the kidnapping plot remained confidential for now. Maxwell Ortiz called it 7:30, voice tight with urgency. The DA wants to meet immediately. This kidnapping conspiracy changes everything. How so? Nathaniel asked, though he knew precisely how his carefully planted evidence would be interpreted. They're revoking Vanessa's bail, adding multiple felony counts. The deal she was negotiating is off the table. And they're particularly interested in the financial transactions between her and Donovan dating back 6 months. Another piece of manufactured evidence, designed to establish a long-term criminal relationship independent of Theodore Reeves. I'll be there in an hour, Nathaniel confirmed. Have they located Donovan yet? Not yet, but with his face on every patrol car computer in the city, it's just a matter of time. Nathaniel had other measures in place to ensure Curtis Donovan would be found, and found in a very specific condition, with very specific evidence in his possession. Preston's specialized team was seeing to those details even now. While arrangements were made for Diana Henderson to stay with Lily during his absence, Nathaniel prepared for the meeting with the district attorney. He selected a conservative suit, his demeanor calibrated to project the appropriate mix of concern and righteous anger of a father whose child had been targeted. As he was leaving, Lily emerged from her room, now fully dressed despite the early hour. You going to talk to the police about Mom? She asked. Yes. There are some important matters to discuss. Nathaniel straightened his tie. Grandma Diana will be here soon to stay with you. Lily nodded, then asked unexpectedly, Are you going to make sure Mom never comes back? The directness of the question gave Nathaniel pause. The legal system will determine the consequences for your mother's actions. But you're helping them, Lily persisted. You have evidence and stuff. Preston told you about the raid this morning. Nathaniel felt a flash of concern at how much Lily had overheard. Preston works for me on security matters, he said carefully. Given the situation, it's important we stay informed. It's okay, Lily said, with that disconcerting maturity. I want Mom to go to jail. She tried to have me kidnapped. The vindication in her tone was familiar, a mirror of his own ruthless certainty. For the first time, Nathaniel wondered if his actions were inadvertently molding Lily in his image, teaching her that calculated retribution was the appropriate response to betrayal. The most important thing, he said, choosing his words with care, is that you're safe and can move forward with your life. Whatever happens to your mother is secondary to that. Lily considered this, then nodded. Okay, but I still hope she goes to jail for a long time. The meeting with District Attorney Eleanor Walsh and her team was held in a conference room at the Justice Center, the atmosphere grave as they reviewed the evidence against Vanessa and her co-conspirators. The communication logs are damning. Walsh noted, a steel-haired woman with 3 decades of prosecution experience. Explicit discussions of using the child as leverage, identifying security vulnerabilities, planning extraction routes. Assistant DA James Morales nodded. And the financial trail connects all 3 defendants conclusively. Wire transfers from Reeves to Donovan, and from Vanessa to both men, dating back months before the forgery scheme became operational. Maxwell Ortiz, seated beside Nathaniel, leaned forward. Given these developments, what additional charges are being considered? Walsh closed the file before her. Conspiracy to commit kidnapping, criminal solicitation, obstruction of justice. We're also exploring RICO applications, given the pattern of organized criminal activity. And bail, Maxwell asked, revoked for Mrs. Russo as of this morning. She'll remain in custody pending trial, which we're pushing to fast-track given the severity of the charges. Nathaniel maintained a composed exterior while satisfaction bloomed within. Everything was proceeding as designed, each piece of fabricated evidence building upon genuine crimes to create an insurmountable case. What about my daughter's safety? He asked, playing his role perfectly. This Donovan individual is still at large. Walsh's expression softened slightly. We have alerts across 3 states. Every law enforcement agency is looking for him. In the meantime, I'd recommend continued private security and limited public exposure for your daughter. The meeting concluded with assurances of regular updates and requests for Nathaniel to remain available for further questioning as needed. As they left the Justice Center, Maxwell pulled Nathaniel aside. This evidence package is remarkably comprehensive, he observed quietly. Almost as if someone had been monitoring these individuals for months, anticipating exactly what they might do. Nathaniel met his attorney's gaze steadily. I've always believed in being prepared for contingencies. When Vanessa's affair first came to light, I engaged appropriate security measures. The fact that those measures captured subsequent criminal planning is fortunate, wouldn't you say? Maxwell held his gaze for a long moment. Fortunate indeed, he finally replied, though one might wonder about the timing and convenience of certain discoveries. One might, Nathaniel acknowledged. But proving such wondering would be another matter entirely. A thin smile crossed Maxwell's face. Precisely why you retain my services, Nathaniel. Shall we discuss next steps over lunch? They were halfway through their meal at an upscale restaurant near the Justice Center when Preston called. Donovan has been located, he reported tersely. Condition as arranged. Evidence in place. And containment? Nathaniel asked, maintaining a neutral expression for Maxwell's benefit. Complete. Anonymous tip to police dispatched 3 minutes ago. They should be arriving at the location momentarily. Excellent. Keep me informed. Nathaniel ended the call, returning his attention to Maxwell, who studied him with knowing eyes. Good news? The attorney inquired. A development in the Donovan situation, Nathaniel replied. It appears he's been located by authorities. What he didn't share was the precise nature of that location, an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district, where Donovan had been found unconscious, surrounded by detailed plans for Lily's abduction, surveillance photos of their home, and most damning of all, equipment intended for restraining a child. The official narrative would report that Donovan had been injured in a fall while attempting to evade capture. The reality involved Preston's specialized team and methods that would never be documented. By mid-afternoon, news of Donovan's capture dominated local headlines. Nathaniel returned home to find Diana Henderson sitting with Lily at the kitchen counter, both of them working on a jigsaw puzzle. "You're back early," Diana observed, her expression questioning. "Some developments required my attention here," Nathaniel explained, setting down his briefcase. "How's everything been?" "Quiet," Diana replied. "Lily's been a perfect host. We've been working on this puzzle most of the morning." Lily looked up, studying her father's face with that penetrating gaze. "Did they catch the bad man? The one who was watching our house?" Nathaniel nodded, again impressed by how much his daughter discerned from minimal information. "Yes, they did. He won't be bothering us anymore." "Good," Lily said decisively, returning to her puzzle piece. "Can we have pizza for dinner?" The casual shift in topic, from potential kidnappers to dinner preferences, highlighted the resilience of children, their ability to compartmentalize trauma in ways adults often couldn't. Yet Nathaniel knew the apparent adjustment masked deeper wounds that would require careful attention. After Diana left, promising to return the next day, Nathaniel received another call from Preston. "Reeves is demanding a meeting," Preston reported. "Says he has information you'll want to hear." "Regarding what?" Nathaniel asked, moving to his study for privacy. He wouldn't specify, only said it concerns mutual interests, and that time is of the essence. Nathaniel considered the request. Theodore Reeves was effectively neutralized, facing decades in prison with no realistic path to freedom. What could he possibly offer that would be of value? "Arrange it," Nathaniel decided. "Maximum security protocols. No recording devices. No witnesses except for Preston himself." The meeting was set for the following morning at the county jail. Nathaniel spent the evening with Lily, maintaining a facade of normalcy while his mind calculated possibilities. Was Reeves hoping to bargain? Threaten? Or was this a final, desperate attempt to implicate Nathaniel in some criminal conspiracy? By morning, news of Curtis Donovan's capture had expanded to include disturbing details of the kidnapping plot. Media outlets reported that Donovan had confessed to conspiring with Vanessa Russo and Theodore Reeves to abduct Lily, intending to use her as leverage to force Nathaniel to drop charges and return seized assets. What the news didn't report, because only Preston's team knew, was that Donovan's confession had been carefully scripted and implanted during his period of unconsciousness, using techniques that left no physical evidence but produced remarkably consistent results. At 9 a.m., with Diana once again staying with Lily, Nathaniel arrived at the county jail. He was escorted to a private meeting room where Theodore Reeves waited, handcuffed to a table, his once handsome face now haggard from weeks in custody. "You've looked better, Theodore," Nathaniel observed calmly, taking the seat opposite him. Reeves leaned forward, eyes burning with hatred. "Cut the small talk, Russo. We both know what this is." "Do we?" "You requested this meeting, not me." "Because I know what you did." Reeves lowered his voice. "The evidence against Vanessa, against Donovan and me. The kidnapping plot. You fabricated all of it." Nathaniel maintained his composure, neither confirming nor denying. "An interesting theory, though I fail to see how such accusations help your current situation." "I'm not trying to help my situation," Reeves spat. "I know I'm done, but I want you to know that I know what you are. A calculator. A manipulator. You're no better than me. You're worse because you hide behind respectability while orchestrating destruction. Is there a point to this meeting beyond sharing your personal opinions?" Nathaniel asked mildly. Reeves leaned back, something shifting in his expression. "Actually, yes. I have something you want. I doubt that very much. Information about Lily." Reeves watched Nathaniel's face carefully. "Information Vanessa shared with me that you don't know." Despite himself, Nathaniel felt a flicker of concern. "What about Lily?" A slow smile spread across Reeves' face. "She's not yours, Nathaniel. Biologically speaking." The claim hung in the air between them. Nathaniel kept his expression neutral despite the sudden cold knot in his stomach. "That's absurd," he said flatly. "Lily is my daughter." "Is she?" Reeves' smile widened. "Vanessa told me everything. How she had an affair 11 years ago, before Lily was born. How the timing never quite added up. How she had a DNA test done privately when Lily was 2. a test that confirmed her suspicions. "You're lying," Nathaniel stated, though a part of his mind was already calculating possibilities, reviewing timelines. "Why would I lie about this? What could I possibly gain?" Reeves shrugged. "I'm already facing decades in prison. This isn't about leverage or deals. This is about making sure you know the full extent of Vanessa's betrayal. That perfect family you thought you had, it was built on lies from the very beginning." Nathaniel stood, his mask of composure firmly in place despite the turmoil beneath. "If that's all, this meeting is over. One more thing," Reeves called as Nathaniel turned to leave. "Ask Vanessa about Martin Kelleher, her boss at the event planning company where she worked when you met her. I believe he lives in Phoenix now. Interesting coincidence. He has green eyes just like Lily's. Just like yours." Nathaniel left without responding, his mind racing through implications. He remembered Martin Kelleher, a distinguished man in his early 40s when Nathaniel had met him at the charity gala where he'd first encountered Vanessa. They'd exchanged pleasantries, nothing more. Had there been signs even then? Some tension between Vanessa and her employer that he'd overlooked? Preston was waiting outside. "Well, what did he want?" "To plant seeds of doubt," Nathaniel replied, gathering his composure. "A final attempt to cause pain." "About what?" "Lily's paternity." The words felt strange to speak aloud. "He claims she's not biologically mine. That Vanessa had an affair before Lily's birth." Preston's expression remained professionally neutral. "And you believe this?" "I don't know," Nathaniel admitted. "It could be a final act of cruelty, or it could be truth. Either way, I need certainty." "DNA test," Preston suggested. "Yes, but discreetly. And I need information on Martin Kelleher, Vanessa's former employer at Premier Events. Current location, background, any connections to Vanessa after she left the company. Consider it done." "And Nathaniel?" Preston's voice softened slightly. "Whatever the results, Lily is your daughter in every way that matters." The sentiment, though well-intentioned, did little to ease the churning in Nathaniel's mind as he drove home. If Reeves was telling the truth, it would mean Vanessa's betrayal extended far beyond recent events. It would mean their entire family had been founded on deception. At home, he found Lily and Diana working in the garden, planting winter flowers in ceramic pots for the sunroom. Watching his daughter, her methodical approach to arranging the plants, her serious expression as she considered color combinations, Nathaniel searched for similarities to himself. The green eyes, yes. The analytical mind. The determined set of her jaw when concentrating. But there were differences, too. Her artistic sensibility. The shape of her face. Features he'd always attributed to Vanessa, but now wondered about with new unease. "Everything okay at your meeting?" Diana asked as he joined them on the patio. "Fine," he replied automatically. "Just some legal matters." Diana studied him with concern. "You look troubled, Nate." "Just tired," he deflected. "It's been an intense few days." Lily looked up from her planting. "Did the bad man tell you something upsetting?" Once again, his daughter's perception startled him. "Why do you ask that?" She shrugged. "You look different than when you left." "Sad, kind of." "It's nothing for you to worry about," Nathaniel assured her, forcing a smile. "How about we finish these planters, then have lunch?" The day proceeded with surface normality, though beneath Nathaniel's calm exterior, his mind worked relentlessly, examining memories and interaction from the past 11 years through this new, disturbing lens. Had there been signs he'd missed? Comments from Vanessa about Lily's appearance or mannerisms that might have hinted at this secret. By evening, Preston had delivered preliminary information on Martin Kelleher. Currently living in Scottsdale, Arizona. Divorced twice. CEO of a successful event management company. No children. No obvious ongoing connection to Vanessa after she left Premier Events, though they had both attended several industry events in the years following. And the DNA test? Nathaniel asked during their brief meeting in his study. Arranged for tomorrow. The technician will come here, present it as a standard medical procedure. No paperwork connecting it to paternity testing. Nathaniel nodded, satisfaction mingling with dread. Thank you, Preston, for everything. After Preston left, Nathaniel found himself standing in Lily's doorway, watching her read in bed. She looked up, sensing his presence. "Are you checking if I'm actually reading my assignment?" she asked with a small smile. "I am. 3 chapters by Thursday, like Mrs. Patel said." "I know you are," Nathaniel said, moving to sit on the edge of her bed. "You always do what's expected. More, usually." Lily marked her place in the book. "Are you okay, Dad? You've been acting weird all day." Nathaniel considered how much to share. "I'm dealing with some difficult information. Nothing you need to worry about." "About Mom?" "Partly," he acknowledged, "and about other things from the past." Lily studied him with those penetrating green eyes he'd always believed she'd inherited from him. "Is it about me? Because those police people were here earlier taking my cheek swab for that medical database thing." Nathaniel felt a flash of anger at Preston's deception, followed by resignation. Of course, the medical procedure story wouldn't fool Lily. "Yes," he admitted. "It's related to that." "Are they checking if I'm really your daughter?" Lily asked directly, surprising him yet again. "Because Mom said something once when she was arguing with you. She said, 'You don't even know what you don't know about her.'" I thought about that a lot. The revelation stunned Nathaniel. "When did she say this?" "Last summer. You were fighting in your study, but the window was open, and I was reading on the patio." Lily's matter-of-fact tone belied the significance of her words. "So, is that what the test is for? To see if you're really my dad?" Faced with her direct question, Nathaniel couldn't bring himself to lie. "Yes, there's been some information suggesting that might be a possibility." Lily absorbed this with remarkable composure. "Would it change things if the test said you weren't?" "Absolutely not," Nathaniel said firmly, taking her hand. "You are my daughter in every way that matters, Lily. Nothing could ever change that." She nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Good, because I don't care what some test says. You're my dad." The simple declaration hit Nathaniel with unexpected force. In his pursuit of retribution against Vanessa and Theodore, in his meticulous planning and calculated strikes, he'd somehow overlooked the most fundamental truth: the bond between him and Lily transcended biology. It was built on years of care, protection, shared experiences, a connection deeper than DNA could measure. "Thank you," he said quietly. "That means everything to me." As he left her room, a new clarity settled over Nathaniel. Whatever the test results revealed, his course was set. Vanessa and Theodore would face the full consequences of their actions, not just for their criminal activities, but for every deception, every betrayal that had threatened the foundation of his family. The following day brought the final pieces of his plan into alignment. The DNA samples were collected and sent for expedited processing. The district attorney's office filed additional charges against Vanessa based on evidence from Curtis Donovan's confession. Theodore Reeves was denied bail reconsideration, ensuring he would remain incarcerated until trial. By evening, Nathaniel had received confirmation that all offshore accounts connected to the forgery scheme had been frozen, their contents in the process of being seized by international authorities. The web of financial transactions he'd constructed, implicating Vanessa more deeply than the actual evidence warranted, had withstood scrutiny from forensic accountants. Everything was proceeding exactly as he designed. The systematic dismantling of those who had betrayed him, the protection of what he valued most. Yet as he sat in his study that night, reviewing Preston's latest reports, Nathaniel found the anticipated satisfaction strangely hollow. The revelation about Lily's potential paternity had shifted something fundamental in his perspective. If Vanessa's deception extended back to the very beginning of their family, then his entire understanding of the past decade had been built on false premises. The perfect family he thought he'd created, the foundation he'd been so determined to protect, had never truly existed as he'd believed. This realization didn't diminish his commitment to Lily or his determination to shield her from harm. If anything, it strengthened his resolve to create a secure future for her, uncontaminated by the legacy of betrayal. But it cast his elaborate revenge in a different light, less a righteous response to a specific injury and more a desperate attempt to impose order on a reality that had never been what he perceived. As midnight approached, Nathaniel made a decision. Whatever the DNA results revealed, he would complete what he had set in motion. Vanessa and Theodore would face the consequences of their actions. But once justice was served, both legal and personal, he would redirect his focus entirely to rebuilding a life with Lily based on truth rather than illusion. The path forward would be challenging, requiring a vulnerability he'd spent a lifetime avoiding. But for Lily's sake, and perhaps for his own, he would face that challenge, however uncomfortable the journey might be. Outside, a winter storm had begun, wind driving snow against the windows in rhythmic patterns. Nathaniel watched the swirling white, feeling a strange resonance with the natural chaos. For all his planning, all his precision, some elements remained beyond his control, a humbling truth he was only now beginning to fully accept. Chapter 8. Ashes and Truth. The DNA results arrived 3 days later in a nondescript envelope delivered by Preston personally. Nathaniel sat at his desk, the sealed envelope before him, hesitating for the first time in months. Through all the betrayals and revelations, he had acted with unwavering certainty. Now, facing a truth that could redefine his most fundamental relationship, he found himself uncharacteristically afraid. Preston waited silently across the desk, his usual professional demeanor softened by concern. "You don't have to open it now," he offered. "Or ever." Nathaniel shook his head. "I need to know." With deliberate movements, he opened the envelope and removed the single sheet of paper inside. The clinical language and statistical analysis took a moment to process, but the conclusion was unambiguous. 0% probability of paternity. A strange calm settled over Nathaniel as he passed the results to Preston. "Well, there it is. Reeves was telling the truth, at least about this." "I'm sorry, Nate," Preston said quietly. "Don't be." Nathaniel stood, moving to the window where he could see Lily in the backyard, bundled against the January cold, conducting some experiment with ice formations. "She's still my daughter. DNA doesn't change the past 11 years. What will you tell her?" "The truth, eventually. She's already half figured it out anyway." Nathaniel turned back to his oldest friend. "But first, I need to speak with Vanessa." "Arrange it." Preston looked skeptical. "Are you sure that's wise?" "Given the current legal situation, I'm not going to do anything to compromise the case," Nathaniel assured him. "But there are questions only she can answer. Questions I need resolved before I can move forward with Lily." By late afternoon, arrangements had been made for a meeting at the Women's Detention Center where Vanessa was being held pending trial. Maxwell Ortiz had protested vehemently, warning that any contact could be misconstrued or manipulated by Vanessa's defense team. Nathaniel had acknowledged the risks but remained adamant. Before leaving, he found Lily in her bedroom, organizing her rock collection, another methodical activity that reminded him so much of himself, genetic connections notwithstanding. "I need to go out for a while," he told her. "Diana will be here soon to stay with you." Lily looked up, instantly alert to the unusual tension in his voice. "You going to see Mom, aren't you?" "Yes," he admitted, no longer surprised by her perceptiveness. "There are some things we need to discuss." She nodded, her expression serious beyond her years. "About the test results?" Nathaniel hesitated, then decided on honesty. "Yes, partly. How did you know they came today?" "I saw Preston arrive with the envelope. And you've been in your study for hours." Lily carefully placed a quartz crystal in its label compartment. "So what did it say? Am I your daughter or not?" The directness of the question momentarily took Nathaniel aback. He moved to sit beside her on the floor, choosing his words with care. "Biologically, it appears not," he said gently. "But Lily, I need you to understand something very important. You are my daughter in every way that matters. I have loved you and raised you from the day you were born. That bond is real and unbreakable, regardless of DNA." Lily absorbed this information with remarkable composure. "I figured it might say that. I don't look that much like you, except for the eyes." She met his gaze directly. "Are you mad at me? At you?" "God, no." Nathaniel reached for her hand. "None of this is your fault. Not one bit of it. Are you going to send me away? To live with my real father?" "Never," Nathaniel said firmly. "You're staying right here, with me, where you belong. And I am your real father. The one who has been there for every skin knee, every school project, Every nightmare and triumph. Biology doesn't change that. Lily seemed to consider this, then nodded. Okay, so you're going to ask Mom who my biological father is. Among other things, yes. Can I come with you? The request was unexpected. Nathaniel shook his head gently. Not this time. There are some adult conversations that need to happen first. But I promise to tell you everything appropriate when I return. Lily accepted this with the same remarkable maturity she'd shown throughout the ordeal. Fine, but don't let Mom trick you. She's really good at making people believe her even when she's lying. The observation, so insightful and yet so painfully adult, underscored how much Lily had been forced to grow up in recent weeks. Nathaniel pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly. I won't, he promised. I know exactly who your mother is now. The detention center was a stark, institutional building on the outskirts of the city. Nathaniel was escorted to a private meeting room, the privileges of wealth and influence ensuring a degree of comfort and privacy unavailable to most visitors. He waited at a table, mentally rehearsing the questions he needed answered, the truths he needed to extract. When Vanessa entered, accompanied by a guard, Nathaniel was struck by how small she appeared in the standard-issue jumpsuit, her usually immaculate appearance dulled by institutional living. Yet her posture remained proud, chin lifted defiantly as she took the seat across from him. I'm surprised you came, she said after the guard stepped outside. Your lawyer must be having fits. Some questions are worth the risk, Nathaniel replied, studying the woman he'd shared a life with for 12 years. Though I doubt you'll be honest with me now, given your track record. A flash of anger crossed Vanessa's face. You don't get to claim the moral high ground, Nathaniel. Not after what you've done. What I've done. He raised an eyebrow. You mean protecting my daughter from being kidnapped? Exposing a major art forgery operation? Ensuring criminals face justice? I mean fabricating evidence. Manufacturing a kidnapping plot. Turning my parents against me. Vanessa leaned forward, lowering her voice. Don't pretend this is about justice. This is about vengeance, pure and simple. Nathaniel allowed a small smile. Interesting theory. Do you have evidence to support these accusations? You know I don't, she replied bitterly. You're too careful for that. Too precise in your calculations. Then perhaps we should focus on what can be proven, Nathaniel suggested. Like the DNA test showing that I am not Lily's biological father. Vanessa's composure faltered slightly, genuine surprise registering in her eyes. You did a paternity test? Reeves suggested it might be informative. He mentioned Martin Kelleher specifically. Color drained from Vanessa's face. Theodore told you about Martin. He provided the name. You're confirming the connection. Nathaniel kept his voice level despite the anger simmering beneath. 11 years, Vanessa. 11 years of letting me believe Lily was mine. What? Vanessa looked away, silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost its defensive edge. It wasn't planned. Martin and I, it happened just once right before I met you. Then you came along, successful, stable, everything Martin wasn't. When I discovered I was pregnant, the timing was close enough that I convinced myself it could be yours. But you had doubts, Nathaniel pressed. Enough to get a DNA test when Lily was 2. She nodded slowly. She started looking more like him as she grew. The shape of her face, certain expressions. I had to know for sure. And when you confirmed I wasn't her father, you said nothing. Let me continue building a life on a fundamental lie. What was I supposed to do? Vanessa's voice rose slightly. We were happy. You adored her. Would knowing the truth have made anything better? That wasn't your decision to make, Nathaniel replied coldly. You robbed me of the chance to deal with the reality of our situation, to make informed choices about my life and family. Like you would have stayed if you'd known, Vanessa scoffed. Mr. Perfect with his perfect plans for a perfect family. You would have left us both. You don't know what I would have done, Nathaniel countered. But I deserve the opportunity to decide for myself. They sat in tense silence, years of unspoken truths and resentments hanging between them. Finally, Nathaniel asked the question that had brought him here. Is Martin Kelleher Lily's biological father? Vanessa nodded, resignation in her gesture. Yes. Does he know? No. He moved to Arizona, before I even realized I was pregnant. We never spoke about it. Nathaniel absorbed this information, mentally filing it away. There would be decisions to make regarding Kelleher later, but for now, he had what he needed from Vanessa. One more question, he said. The kidnapping plan with Donovan. Was that real, or is Theodore right about my fabricating evidence? A wry smile crossed Vanessa's face. You're recording this conversation, aren't you? Trying to get me to confess to false accusations. I'm simply asking for the truth. For once. The truth, Vanessa repeated, almost to herself. The truth is, I don't know anymore where Theodore's plans ended and your manipulations began. Did he discuss taking Lily to pressure you? Yes. Did I participate in detailed planning for an actual kidnapping? No. She fixed him with a direct look. But you already know that, don't you? Because you're the one who constructed the narrative, piece by careful piece. Nathaniel neither confirmed nor denied the accusation. Interesting that you admit Theodore discussed taking Lily, yet you continued your relationship with him. What kind of mother maintains a connection with someone who threatens her child? Vanessa's eyes hardened. The kind who's desperate. The kind who made too many mistakes to turn back. She leaned forward. You want to know the truth about me, Nathaniel? I've always been running from one bad decision to the next. Martin knew Theodore, each time thinking I'd found an escape route. And Lily? Was she just another bad decision to you? No, Vanessa replied, a flicker of genuine emotion crossing her face. She's the one pure thing in my life. I didn't know how to be what she needed. Yet you were willing to uproot her, take her from her home, her school, her friends, from the only father she's ever known. I convinced myself it was for her benefit, Vanessa said quietly, that she'd have a better life away from your emotional coldness, your constant perfectionism. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Convenient rationalization for selfishness. Perhaps, Vanessa acknowledged. But we all tell ourselves stories to justify our actions. Even you, Nathaniel. Especially you. They sat in silence. The weight of 12 years of marriage, built on false premises, sustained by mutual delusion, pressing down on them. Finally, Nathaniel stood. I didn't come here for reconciliation or closure, he said. I came for information. Now I have it. What happens next? Vanessa asked, a hint of vulnerability breaking through her defiance. With Lily, I mean, she stays with me where she belongs, where she's safe and loved. And me? Will you tell her to forget I exist? To hate me forever? Nathaniel considered the question. I won't have to. Your actions have spoken for themselves. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Don't attempt to contact Lily. Not through your parents, not through letters, not through any means. She deserves peace after what you've put her through. You can't keep her from me forever, Vanessa called as he reached for the door. I'm still her mother. Nathaniel turned back, his expression cold and final. Biologically, yes. But in every way that matters? No. You forfeited that right when you chose Theodore over her safety. When you lied to her, to both of us, for 11 years. As he left the detention center, Nathaniel felt a strange sense of liberation. The final piece of the puzzle was in place. The complete picture of Vanessa's betrayal now clear. With this knowledge came certainty about the path forward. By the time he arrived home, Nathaniel had formulated the next phase of his plan. This one wasn't about revenge, but reconstruction, building a new foundation for himself and Lily based on truth rather than illusion. Diana was reading in the living room when he returned, looking up with concern as he entered. How did it go? As expected, Nathaniel replied. She confirmed what we already knew. Diana nodded sadly. I've been thinking about Lily, about what all this means for her. So have I. Nathaniel sat across from his former mother-in-law. She knows about the DNA test results. She's handling it with remarkable composure, but she'll need support moving forward. Of course, Diana assured him. Bill and I will be there for both of you, however you need us. I appreciate that. Nathaniel hesitated, then added, There's something else you should know. Martin Kelleher is Lily's biological father. He doesn't know about her. Diana's hand went to her mouth. Martin? From Premier Events? I remember him from Vanessa's work functions. Yes. Vanessa confirmed it today. Nathaniel leaned forward. I'm telling you this because I believe in transparency now. No more secrets, no more lies. But my position on this is clear. I am Lily's father in every way that matters. That will not change. Of course not, Diana agreed immediately. No one will question that, Nate. Especially not Bill and me. Their conversation was interrupted by Lily's appearance in the doorway, her expression cautious as she looked between them. You're back, she said to Nathaniel. Did you see Mom? Yes, he confirmed. We talked about several things, including the DNA test. Lily nodded, processing this. So who is my biological father? Nathaniel exchanged a glance with Diana, who gave him an encouraging nod. His name is Martin Kelleher, Nathaniel explained gently. He used to work with your mother many years ago, before you were born. He lives in Arizona now. Does he know about me? No. Your mother never told him. Lily absorbed this information with surprising equanimity. Are you going to tell him? That's something we'll need to decide together, Nathaniel replied. But not immediately. Right now, our focus is on moving forward, you and me. Lily crossed the room and sat beside him on the couch. I don't need to know him, she said decisively. You're my dad. That's all that matters. Nathaniel put his arm around her shoulders, a lump forming in his throat at her unwavering loyalty. Thank you, sweetheart. But someday, you might feel differently. And if that time comes, we'll address it together. No more secrets in this family. As Diana excused herself to make tea, Lily looked up at Nathaniel with those perceptive green eyes, so similar to his own despite the lack of genetic connection. Is Mom going to jail for a long time? Most likely, yes, Nathaniel answered honestly. The charges against her are serious. Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied with this response. Good. I don't want to see her again. Not after what she did. The cold finality in his daughter's voice echoed Nathaniel's own unforgiving nature, a trait possibly learned rather than inherited, he realized with a mix of pride and concern. That's your choice, he said carefully, and I'll support whatever decision you make about contact with your mother, now or in the future. As evening fell, the three of them shared a quiet dinner, the conversation deliberately light. After Lily went upstairs to prepare for bed, Diana touched Nathaniel's arm. You've raised an extraordinary child, she said softly. DNA or not, she is very much your daughter. The observation stayed with Nathaniel as he later sat in his study, reviewing the latest updates from Preston and Maxwell. Theodore Reeves' trial date had been set. Curtis Donovan had negotiated a reduced sentence in exchange for testimony against both Reeves and Vanessa. The financial investigation had traced the art forgery proceeds to accounts in 6 countries, confirming the operation's international scope. All proceeding as planned, yet Nathaniel found his satisfaction increasingly tempered by other considerations. The ruthless efficiency with which he'd orchestrated Vanessa and Theodore's downfall, the single-minded pursuit of retribution, had achieved its objectives, but at what cost to his own humanity? To the example he was setting for Lily? These reflections were interrupted by a soft knock at his study door. Lily stood there in her pajamas, a book clutched her chest. Can't sleep? Nathaniel asked. She shook her head. I keep thinking about everything. About Mom, and the man in Arizona, and what happens next. Nathaniel gestured for her to join him, and she settled into the leather chair opposite his desk. It's a lot to process, he acknowledged. But we'll figure out together, one day at a time. Lily studied him with those unflinching eyes. You made Mom and Theodore pay for what they did, didn't you? Beyond just calling the police, I mean. The question caught Nathaniel off guard. What makes you ask that? I'm not stupid, Dad. The way everything happened, the timing, how all the evidence was just there. You planned it. Nathaniel considered denying it, offering a simplified version that a child might accept. But hadn't he just committed to honesty? Yes, he admitted. I ensured they faced consequences proportional to their actions. Because they betrayed you. Us. Yes. Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied. Good. They deserved it. She paused, then asked, Will you teach me? Teach you what? How to make sure people can't hurt me. How to be strong like you. The request sent a chill through Nathaniel. He recognized in Lily's expression the same calculating determination that had driven his own actions, A protective instinct hardened into something potentially dangerous. Lily, he said carefully, strength isn't just about making others pay for hurting you. It's also about knowing when to let go, when to move forward instead of looking back. But you didn't let go, she pointed out. You made sure they paid. I did, Nathaniel acknowledged. And part of me is satisfied by that. But another part wonders if I've spent too much energy on retribution and not enough on rebuilding. Lily considered this. So you're saying it's better to forgive? No, Nathaniel replied honestly. I don't believe in blanket forgiveness for genuine betrayal. But I am saying that defining your life by vengeance can consume you. The stronger path is to ensure justice while not allowing the betrayal to determine your future happiness. It was a nuanced lesson, perhaps too complex for an 11-year-old. Yet Lily nodded thoughtfully. I think I understand. It's okay to make sure bad people face consequences, but then you have to move on and build something good. Exactly, Nathaniel smiled, reaching across the desk to take her hand. And that's what we're going to do. As he later tucked Lily into bed, Nathaniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. The orchestrated downfall of Vanessa and Theodore was nearly complete, their worlds effectively destroyed through his methodical intervention. Yet the victory felt increasingly hollow compared to the challenge that now faced him. Building a healthy future for Lily, teaching her to be strong without becoming callous, protective without becoming destructive. It was a balance he himself had yet to master. But for her sake, he would try. Chapter 9. Phoenix. 6 months later, on a warm July morning, Nathaniel stood in the federal courthouse corridor awaiting the verdict in Theodore Reeves' trial. The past half-year had brought sweeping changes and hard-won stability to his and Lily's lives. Vanessa had accepted a plea deal in March, receiving a 15-year sentence for her role in the forgery scheme and the attempted kidnapping conspiracy. The evidence Nathaniel had meticulously assembled, both legitimate and manufactured, had created an airtight case that even her high-priced attorney couldn't dismantle. She would be eligible for parole in 7 years, by which time Lily would be 18 and capable of making her own decisions about contact. Curtis Donovan had received 12 years for his participation, his testimony against Theodore securing a slightly reduced sentence. The financial investigation had recovered nearly $3.8 million in fraudulently obtained funds, most of which had been returned to the victims of the forgery scheme. Through it all, Nathaniel had maintained his outward composure while privately re-evaluating aspects of his approach to justice and retribution. The ruthlessness with which he'd pursued Vanessa and Theodore had achieved its intended outcome, but the cold satisfaction had faded more quickly than anticipated, replaced by a focus on Lily's well-being and their shared future. Preston approached from the courtroom doors, his expression confirming what Nathaniel had already anticipated. Guilty on all counts. The judge is recommending 25 years without possibility of parole. Nathaniel nodded, feeling a final piece click into place. Thank you, Preston, for everything. Just doing my job. Preston replied, though both men knew his role had extended far beyond professional services. What now? Now? Nathaniel glanced at his watch. Now I pick up Lily from her science camp and take her to that ice cream place she likes. Life goes on. Preston studied him with knowing eyes. And Kelleher? Have you made a decision about that situation? The question referenced the ongoing discussion about whether to inform Martin Kelleher of his biological connection to Lily. Nathaniel had compiled a comprehensive file on the man. Successful businessman, divorced with no children, active in community philanthropy, no criminal history or concerning behaviors. By all accounts, a decent person who might have a genuine interest in knowing about Lily. We're still considering options, Nathaniel replied. Lily knows everything now, including who he is. She's expressed curiosity, but no urgency. We've agreed to revisit the question when she turns 13. And you're comfortable with that possibility? Another man entering Lily's life as a father figure? Nathaniel had asked himself this question repeatedly over the past months, examining his feelings with the same analytical rigor he applied to engineering problems. Not a father figure, he corrected. I'm Lily's father, the only one she's ever known or needed. But biology has its own significance. If she chooses to explore that connection someday, I won't stand in her way. My priority is her well-being, not my ego. This position represented significant growth from the possessive protectiveness that had initially driven his response to Vanessa's betrayal. The realization that his relationship with Lily transcended genetic connections had paradoxically made him more secure in that bond, less threatened by the prospect of sharing some aspect of paternal relation. Outside the courthouse, Nathaniel paused on the steps, looking up at the clear summer sky. The past 6 months had brought other changes as well. He'd scaled back his work hours to be more present for Lily. They'd started seeing a family therapist together, processing the trauma of Vanessa's betrayal and the subsequent revelations. Diana and Bill Henderson remained steady presences in their lives, their loyalty to Lily and Nathaniel unwavering despite the painful situation with their daughter. The four of them had even taken a spring break trip to the coast, creating new traditions to replace those tainted by Vanessa's presence. As Nathaniel drove to the university campus where Lily was attending a prestigious summer science program, he reflected on how his daughter had blossomed since the chaos of Christmas morning. Her initial cold withdrawal had gradually opened into a new kind of relationship with him, one based on hard-won honesty and shared resilience. The analytical mind that had always reminded him of himself had found positive channels in advanced mathematics and chemistry rather than the calculation of grievances. Lily was waiting at the campus pickup zone, chatting animatedly with 2 other students. She spotted his car and waved goodbye to her friends, her smile brightening as she approached. "How was the verdict?" she asked as she climbed into the passenger seat, immediately cutting to what she knew was important. "Guilty on all counts," Nathaniel confirmed. 25 years recommended. Lily nodded, absorbing this information with the same composed acceptance she'd shown throughout the legal proceedings. Good. He deserved it. Then, switching topics with preteen flexibility, can we still get ice cream? Professor Winters showed us how to use liquid nitrogen to make it instantly today. It was amazing. Nathaniel smiled, genuinely warmed by her enthusiasm. Absolutely. Tell me more about this experiment. As Lily launched into a detailed explanation of the scientific principles involved, Nathaniel drove toward their favorite ice cream parlor, listening with engaged interest. This was their new normal. Conversations about science and books, weekend hiking trips, movie nights with the Hendersons, therapy sessions that sometimes left them both emotionally drained but ultimately stronger. What remained unspoken but understood between them was the permanence of certain boundaries. Nathaniel had not forgiven Vanessa, nor would he ever permit her to re-enter their lives on anything but the most restricted terms. His capacity for retribution had been demonstrated beyond question. His willingness to extend mercy had definite limits. Lily, showing a similar temperament whether by nature or nurture, had maintained her own uncompromising stance. She had refused all contact with her mother, returning unopened the 3 letters Vanessa had managed to send despite Nathaniel's legal injunctions. When asked in therapy if she might someday want to reconnect, Lily had been unequivocal. She made her choice. She chose him over us. Actions have consequences. At the ice cream shop, they sat at their usual corner table by the window. As Lily described her upcoming science fair project, Nathaniel felt a surge of pride mixed with protective determination. She was extraordinary, resilient, brilliant, strong-willed. His daughter in every way that mattered. "Dad," Lily interrupted his thoughts. "I've been thinking about something." "What's that?" "I think I might want to meet him someday." "Martin Kelleher, I mean." She stirred her ice cream thoughtfully. "Not right away. Maybe next year or the year after. But I think I want to know who he is." "Is that okay?" Nathaniel had prepared for this moment, had discussed it with their therapist, had examined his own feelings about it extensively. "Of course it's okay," he assured her. "When you're ready, we'll find a way to make that happen. Together." Lily nodded, visibly relieved. "I was worried you might be upset." "Why would I be upset?" "Because—" She hesitated. "Because you don't forgive people who betray you. And Mom betrayed you by keeping that secret about him." The observation, so accurate in its assessment of his character, gave Nathaniel pause. It was true that his nature tended toward the unforgiving, the absolute. The calculated destruction of Vanessa and Theodore's lives stood as testament to that trait. Yet here was an opportunity to demonstrate a more nuanced approach to his daughter. There's a difference, he explained carefully. Your mother's deception was a betrayal directed at me, at our family. But Martin Kelleher never made any commitment to me to break. He didn't even know about you. Meeting him isn't about forgiveness. It's about you understanding your full identity. Lily considered this distinction. So, you're not mad about me being curious about him? Not at all, Nathaniel assured her. In fact, I think it shows maturity that you're thinking about these complex aspects of your life. Relief softened her features. Good, because I was also thinking maybe we could invite Grandma and Grandpa to come live closer to us. They seem lonely since everything happened with Mom. The suggestion surprised Nathaniel. Though the Hendersons had remained loyal to him and Lily, he maintained a certain emotional distance, unable to fully separate them from their daughter's betrayal. Yet here was Lily, showing a capacity for connection that transcended the rigid boundaries he tended to establish. I think that's worth considering, he said finally. They do love you very much. And you too, Lily added. They always say you're the son they wish they'd had. The comment struck Nathaniel deeply. Throughout the ordeal, Bill and Diana had indeed stood by him unwaveringly. Perhaps his all-or-nothing approach to loyalty deserved reconsideration in their case. We'll talk to them about it, he promised. Maybe look at some properties in our neighborhood. As they finished their ice cream and headed home, Nathaniel reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. The architect of precision revenge had not disappeared. That calculating core remained fundamental to his nature. He would never forgive Vanessa or Theodore for their betrayal, never permit either to re-enter the life he was rebuilding with Lily. Yet alongside that uncompromising stance, something else had developed, a capacity to distinguish between different types of breaches, to recognize that not all connections needed to be severed when expectations weren't met. This nuance, this ability to hold simultaneously the protective ruthlessness that had always defined him and a more measured approach to relationships outside the central betrayal, represented genuine growth. That evening, as they sat on the back patio watching the sunset over the lake, Lily leaned against his shoulder companionably. We're going to be okay, aren't we, Dad? She asked, the question holding layers of meaning beyond its simple wording. Nathaniel put his arm around her shoulders. Yes, he said with conviction. We already are. The words held truth. They were okay, not unmarked by what had happened, not unchanged, but solid in their reconfigured foundation. The ruthlessness that had driven Nathaniel's pursuit of retribution remained, coexisting now with a more directed purpose, not merely destroying those who had betrayed them, but building something stronger from the aftermath. As darkness fell, father and daughter remained side by side, their bond forged in fire, tempered by truth, and ultimately stronger than any deception had the power to break. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.